everybody. This is our astrology weather forecast for January 15th, 2025. And we have the Sun Mars opposition occurring today. It's a temporary influence because these are two inner planets, but it is a peak in energy. So the moon continues through Leo, and it oh yeah, we do have that square going on to Uranus, so there is an undercurrent of uh tension. Anytime we have moon in a difficult aspect to Uranus, we're wrestling with closeness versus freedom. So we're figuring out how to have our space and be ourselves too. So there's always a dynamic tension that is part of the undercurrent anytime Uranus is involved. And that is going to add to the overt tension that is occurring today with the Sun opposing Mars. So this has been building because oppositions are where we come to a crescendo. We come to an aha moment, and a werewolf moment regarding the two things in opposition because we have an encounter or we have something outside of ourselves, something external, something will happen, or sometimes it's an epiphany or realization. But usually it is something that we come to recognize as a pattern or as a result. A pattern that we would not see if we didn't have some kind of reflective surface. So oppositions are interesting because they are some of our most impactful turning points in our life and in uh, a mundane astrology, like just transits. So we always want to be aware of the oppositions in our own chart, because that's where we can have our most mm, our most enlightening epiphanies. So today, what is the epiphany? What is the enlightening moment that we come to? Well, both the Sun and Mars are elements of the ego. Mars represents the id. It's the primary ego. It's the childish ego. It's the part of us that wants things now and that's very demanding and more immature aspects that make up, the totality of how we think ourselves up. And it's a lot of the responses to our impulses and our knee-jerk reactions. And then the Sun represents the more mature ego that we develop in the space of the fifth house, which, if you look from the first to the 12th, all represent a certain stage in human development. And in that fifth house in Leo, things that have to do with the Sun, we're developing identity. And we may try on a few versions of ourselves before we find the one that cements and gives us the kind of response, the kind of validation, the kind of attention that we're looking for. What is that chosen self-expression that we layer onto what is just knee-jerk and natural with Mars, and sometimes you might need to rein in. And then Jupiter, ninth house in Sagittarius represent the superego. That's a different lesson. So we have these two elements of the ego coming into play with each other in a dynamic lesson of balance, because we see something outside of ourselves and we can look at it as a source of resentment, anger, embarrassment, um, conflict is conflict between what I want. That's the sun. That's what we choose for ourselves. So it's going to bring us the kind of self-expression, validity, and how we want to be seen, sun stuff. And then how does the id, the knee-jerk reactions and responses, the things that are more about selfishness, or the primary parts of the ego, the things that are not always as well examined. We just may be reacting instead of being more in tune with the desires of our heart. That's what the sun is. So the sun is, yes, the chosen way, how we'll think ourselves up. A lot of the ego that we play with, until it becomes more concrete. But it shows us that if we're in touch with our soul, with our heart, which the sun represents, that is what the source of our authenticity is. And that comes through the sun, comes through the things of Leo in the fifth house. So it's our authentic expression. And so we have this, being led by our heart, which is very life affirming, the sun. It's where we play. We have that in opposition to Mars, the things that are more about the primary libido, instinct to win, supremacy. It's more the knee-jerk reactions, reflexes that aren't always of our conscious choosing. And so we come into this opposition and we're seeing how is our own aggression or our own uncontrolled or mismanaged libido or creative force, the two parts of the ego, how is it showing up in such a way that we're seeing some kind of friction or conflict or opposition to moving forward with what it is? It either brings us the kind of validation we're looking for, or even better yet, it brings us closer to a total alignment with the kind of validation and self-expression that comes when we're more in alignment with our heart and our joy, and spirit is animating what it is that we do, or we're in concert with spirit. That's what the sun really, really represents. And how are the things that Mars is representing, especially because Mars is in Cancer, being much more reflective. How is that helping or opposing? What it is that's life affirming and spirit wants to inhabit and animate. Okay, so there really isn't a lot else going on in terms of really exact aspects. So if you have been in touch, with that soul purpose, sun stuff, if that Yeah, that warmth has been allowed to shine through. If it's something that you really showcasing rather than looking for hiding, this can be an opposition that can bring a lot of energy to the surface that can be directed in very life affirming ways, into hobbies, goals that are more of our choosing. So, not always will we experience direct tension or conflict outside of ourselves. And sometimes we will, but it won't result in something negative because we know ourselves and we can accurately predict what we will do in certain situations. We see how our our the more unpredictable sides of ourselves, or the predictably unpredictable sides of ourselves, can show up with oppositions, but they don't always have to be aspects that encourage conflict. If we're coming into the experience of an opposition and we have achieved some mastery over the forces that particular opposition means, we may experience some difficulties or conflicts or waves outside of ourselves, but we can neutralize that rather than pass that karmic ball back or be reactive in a way that we experience a ricochet. So the lesson, we can, I don't even know if it's a lesson, it's like an experience, maybe. We can see it, we can absorb it, we can learn from it, but it's not something that results in a cascade or can play into a larger pattern. Alrighty. I will leave you with that, and I will check in with you guys later on.